2, 1. Here we go. Alright, welcome back to Lenz's Comic Corner, classic known classics. This is episode number 3212, Doubleshot number 3106. We have the first two we have here is the final Punisher trade that collect Garth and Ennis' issues. And a horror industry. First up we have is Punisher Max, the Complete Collection, Volume 4, which collects Punisher Barracuda Max 1 through 5, Punisher Volume 6 50 to 60, Punisher the Tiger, Punisher the Cell, and Punisher the End. Yes, all one-shots released under the Max imprint. Yes. Yeah, this pretty much is the end of this era. And also, this volume would last for another 15 issues before being relaunched. Yeah, the volume would end, be relaunched as simply Punisher Max, one word, and the main Punisher title, of course, will still continue at this point in time. So, the first two story arcs all focus on, of course, Barracuda. Of course, you got to do the writing here with Goran Pilar, for those the Barracuda Max book. Long Cold Dark is issue 50 is done by Howard Chankin. That's the arc for that one. Issue 50 and 54 is Goran Pilar, who also does Valley Forge. The Tiger is done by John Severn. The Cell is Louis La Raza. And the End is Richard Corbin. Yes, it's kind of like, even though that by the time issue 60 came out, he was kind of done writing the main Punisher line, main Punisher book, but he still wrote Punisher one-shots. So, pretty much in the way, this is a story, I think, presumably set before Punisher first met Bushwhacker. We don't see the golden teeth in his mouth, per se. So it's like... And of course, there's a joke about race because he's black. Like South Res again, F you, and then of course, basically, where Barracuda wrecks the guy's car and proceeds to pee on it. Yep, because that's what he does. And it's just Barracuda does whatever the heck he wants. And by the way, yeah, he may throw a little racist jab at South Rising again, but characters, despite the fact he is black, characters are not dropping the N-word toward him at all. Probably because he's very scary. Yes. He does drop the N-word once. And this is basically just him just howling around with this one guy named Oswald. And there's also, oh yeah, he does have the F-U-C-K on the actual his teeth. Then of course he, for some stupid reason, he decides to visit a bathroom with another guy, just learn about paying. And he visits a dictator. He's introduced to what he thinks is a beautiful black woman. Actually, another woman per se he sleeps with, Barracuda. But then the president, this dictator, is introduced to a black woman who turns out it's a guy in drag. Yep, it's a guy in drag. Yep. And for some weird reason, this guy called 50 has a shirt that says, "Daddy touched me." You can tell it's a guy because he's got hair in his arms. Yep. So he thinks it's a woman, and supposedly this woman in drag, this guy in drag, later sleeps with the president, and apparently he does not hear the normal sound when a guy makes it into the bathroom, or he apparently doesn't see the fact there's hair on the arms. Or hair on the legs. Nope, he doesn't see that for some reason. And, like, he apparently doesn't look in the bathroom. By the way, he finds later on that 50 is a guy. So, they're in a helicopter when this happens. So, what does he do? When he finds out that she is a he can easily tell us, well, I'm not going to show the panel itself, but yeah, he shows his package when basically wearing the pair of underwear. Yep. Yes, so got the more stuff here, and of course, basically, like, 50 is like, basically, he's asking the guy in drag to give him an adult thing, and he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And shows the fact he's got a dick. And then he proceeds, because he's so appalled by this, he jumps off and jumps into a volcano, killing him. Like, well, that gets rid of one dictator. And that kind of wraps it up, per se. The character 50 does not pop up again after this. Yes, after this miniseries wraps up. Doesn't he appear in the next story arc, which Barracuda's happy to be featured in. My guess is they put this here because I think maybe because this takes place prior to his return in the Punisher title. I think because Barracuda is a popular character, that's why they brought it back. Yeah, and the first issue we have here is drawn by the awesome Howard Chaykin. Yep. Where in this very issue we find out Punisher is a parent. Yep. So we have flashbacks to castles. Punisher's just at a shooting range. And then you have, here's Barracuda alive and well. By the way, Garth Ennis does not explain how the heck he survived a water filled with sharks. Punisher, I can see it because they actually show it. Him, it's like, it was implied Punisher shot him, he fell in the water. But here, he's like alive and well because, well, he is that freaking invincible. Yep. Yeah, and then of course Punisher is seeing that, and of course he says a word I'm not gonna show it because basically it's a swear word. Shows the fact he has a daughter. He had a daughter with Catherine O'Brien, the woman who's part of the IRA who fell in love with Punisher, and the whole story arc is basically just Punisher biting him in the cheek and basically fighting him a lot, and it's like, oh, you're the Punisher. Yep. And well, the thing is, Punisher basically ripped out part of the guy's cheek and shows his teeth. And by the way, does he get the sewn up? Nope, he just put a bandage on and just walks away. I would have thought, though, they would have, put a bandage on. Nope, because he killed the doctor. And then for the remainder of the story arc, he basically searches for Barracuda. Barracuda is feeding his daughter, who, by the way, her name is Sarah, and feeds her. And then Punisher eventually tracks down Barracuda, where he then proceeds. Now, by the way, he apparently got his bottom teeth thick, despite the fact when he first met the Punisher, 2 of his teeth fell out. Either he had to put back in, or it was. My guess is it's an artistic error of why in the world that some of his teeth are there and even they should not be there. And supposedly he kills his daughter, turns out nope, it's a fake. Yep, it's a fake. And basically, he deals with Barracuda. Like, pretty much the remainder couple issues is him just shooting him, beating him up. And this goes on while a baby is right next to him with full head of hair. Yes, a baby girl. Yes, they have all this going on here. And Punisher gets his daughter back. And he's like, yeah. And of course, he's trying to drop an F-bomb, of course. And he just beats the living crap out of him. And you're like, can nothing kill this guy? Yeah, he is that unstoppable. And eventually, he's finally dead. Oh yeah, he is dead. Punisher just basically blows him away with a different gun. Just basically blows him, take off his nose. And then he just gives his daughter to basically her aunt, who just kind of in a way takes care of her because he doesn't want her in his life. And he goes off. And that's the end of Barracuda. Yes, he does not come back at all. In this continuity, he is never resurrected. That story arc there was his end. And then we have Valley Forge, which is some scripts in here. This story arc here, this 6-parter, does bring up the return of Nick Fury one more time in this book before he disappears from Punisher's life, before he pops up again in the Punisher Max book. Yep. Yeah, basically, of course, Nick Fury is older now in this book. Yes. So, pretty much in the way, this is all about this group of these retired generals who are corrupt, and Punisher has to deal with them. And that's kind of what this just the storyline is. So it's basically Punisher dealing with corrupt military officials. Okay? And by the end, all the guys are killed. Yep. They're all killed throughout this entire story. Yeah, and I like the fact he writes them really well in here. After killing him off, of course, basically, like, you think, like, okay, like, yeah, and basically their deaths is basically what ends the storyline. And then we have Punisher the Tiger, which is basically Punisher. Look, he's in, he's not in Vietnam. Basically, he's in some place where he just kills some people. I love the artwork, though. The artwork is really, really good. I like the artwork of this one shot. It is really good. Yep, it's basically about focus on a kid. They can focus on Punisher's past. Yeah, I love when he was a kid and he's older, of course. And then we have Punisher's Cell, which is all about Punisher killing people in the prison. That's kind of what this one shot is. And then we have Punisher the End, which is not the end of the Max continuity. It's what was implied to be the end of the continuity. It's set in the future, where it's supposedly Punisher kills some more bad guys, and he is really old, and he kind of wins in the end. But that's pretty much basically Garth Ennis and Punisher in a nutshell. This book was actually pretty good. I do appreciate the fact that, but what I think of the book itself, Punisher, Barracuda Max, I gotta admit, this book was for the second major appearance of Barracuda. Now, like I said, the only reason why they brought him back because, well, his story was well received. It made Marvel a lot of money, so I guess Marvel and Editor must have told Garth Ennis, hey, can you do a mini-series where you basically do another thing with Barracuda? I guess he's like, okay, I could do that. Yep. Yep. He basically, now, in case you're wondering, yes, this book is the end of his time writing the main Punisher book, but not the last time he wrote the Punisher. Oh no, he would make several comebacks with this particular universe per se. Yes. Neat. So after this run wrapped up, of course he did also believe it or not, he did, he also worked on, he did Punisher Born, obviously, which preceded this book. He, by the way, the end that came up between issues 4 and 5. There's also one called Countdown, which he wrote that book, which is not in the shape paperback for some reason. The Cell was in here. Oh yeah, he was the opening writer for Punisher Volume. He did the Punisher Volume 5 miniseries, which I had reviewed. He wrote the Punisher again. So basically, aside from Punisher, he did work on Fury Peacemaker, which I believe was the second miniseries featuring the guy. Yes, but it was published in the Marvel Knights imprint, not Marvel Max. He did also show Tears, obviously. So apparently the Punisher Barracuda miniseries was coming out at the same time as the previous story arc for this current one. After issue 60, of course, he did also work on War is Hell, the first Flight Pan Eagle. Of course, right after this last issue came out for Punisher Volume 6, he did the Wars miniseries, and then he did the Fury Max book, which was a 13-issue book. He did where the monsters dwell. He did Return to the Max imprint for Punisher with Punisher the Platoon, which is not in the shade paperback because it came out in 2017. Yep. Then he did Punisher Soviet, an issue of Marvel Comics Black, White, and Blood. He did recently the Gift Fury book, which actually was a comeback for him. Now, believe it or not, the Fury Max book came out in 2012. Warzone came out in 2009. So when he did the Fury Max book, that was like 3 years later. He would never return to the Punisher until Punisher Max of Tune, which came out in 2017, which was 8 years later. And he did Punisher Sylvia, obviously, and then Get Fury, which was a team-up book of Punisher and Nick Fury. Yep. And that's kind of it for him. I would say that Fury Max is probably his next ongoing he worked on. He basically, but in the Case Man Punisher line, he was done. Completely done. Yes, and this is like I said, this is the end of his 9-year epic with this character. It all started with Punisher, with the Punisher Kills Marvel Universe one-shot. That's where it started with, which came out in 1995, which was collected. I believe was the first Marvel Knights book. Then he did, of course, Volume 4, obviously, the Punisher Painkiller Jane one-shot, which surprisingly Marvel decided to not include in a trade paperback for some reason. Despite the fact Garth wrote it, it was not included in Marvel Knights book for him. He did the Hulk Smash book, which was just a couple issues. Yeah, a couple issues, which he also did Tangle Web 1000. Which basically was just a launch before, which I have reviewed already for Tangled Web. And he, of course, worked on Volume 6, obviously. The first thing he worked on for the Max imprint was Fury Max, was the Fury book, which I heard that Stan Lee was not happy with this book at all. He hated this book. Yes, from what I read, he didn't feel like it was Nick Fury at all when he read this book. Yeah, he absolutely despised it. And my guess someone at Marvel was to really enjoy this miniseries so much so they decided to relaunch Punisher under this imprint, and it was pretty successful. After 5 years, I guess he was done. Though he would come back. Now, those of you a little curious though, when Punisher War Joker came out, how long between that and the final issue of this book that? Like how much time passed by? Well, then release-wise. Well, excuse me. The final issue of this one is by Tom Broadstreet still does the cover art for this one. Issue 6 was released in August 2008. Punisher Warzone was released just a few months later. You're like, really? Yeah, really. Just a few months later. Then he was gone for a brief period of time. He's come back a couple times to the title. Yeah, but Garth Ennis, I don't think it's a terrible writer per se. I do enjoy some of his Punisher work, but not all of it per se. And I have no plans to read The Boys. I know that's one of his most popular books that he came out with, but not currently interested at all. Nope. And with that, basically, I'm actually almost done with Punisher Volume 6. Yeah, Volume 6 is actually almost done. Yeah, with the next volume, which I'm hoping to have next to me, that will finish up Volume 6. Yep, yes it will. Though, I should point out, though, the next 5 issues, 6 weeks, I have previously, I actually own the trade paperback. It's on my shelf over there. So, why don't you just read this next trade paperback? I'm going to skip those issues because I read them already. So, next up, I have is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Volume 10, Beyond the Grid. And this is going to be the last trade for the original 55 issues trades from the original before it was relaunched. This book collects 35-39 of the Mighty Power Rangers book. It continues the storyline Beyond the Grid, written by Margaret Bennett, art by Simon Amuno, French Canemigo, who does basically, that's Inca Systems, okay. So pretty much basically the opening issue is pretty much Heckle's backstory. That's what 35 is. It's told really well, and I think it's adapted from the TV show, so they basically just mention Archon. Basically, it's adapting what was mentioned in the actual show itself, and they adapted it for the book itself, which I thought was really cool. The Margaret Bennett did it, and that's pretty much the gist of 35. 36 is mostly put just the Rangers, just going to various places, while trying to find the main villain in the book. And we also have, get this, Tanya, who in the show was played by Nikita, apparently decides to fall in love with Mike, who's from Lost Galaxy. Now, I'm sure for a fact that Tanya is a little bit older than he is, but I guess they probably who cares. And, like, All About His Country 5 and Terra Venture, it's called Permagia, it's basically Terra Venture. And I mentioned the whole thing about the Zeo crystals. Yes, the big gist of the Zeo storyline from Power Rangers Zeo. Yep. So, the whole issue 37 is all about looking. Of course, they find the guy, of course, and found the planet is made of Zeo crystals, which, that's interesting, the fact that they got that. And then the very next issue of the book, 37, is kind of continuing this. There's a little Space Adventure stuff. And of course, they have their. They take pieces of Zeo crystal and fix their morphers that they have, and they all morph. And they all get their suits changed to this. Yep. Yeah. Of course, leads 38 where they continue fighting the guy. So apparently, it's kind of explained here that this planet is where the Zeo crystal came from, because that was mystery in the show, and now this comic, they came from this planet. Okay. Yeah, and of course you have, I'm gonna call it Terra Venture. So I think it's called the Permagia. It's Terra Venture. That's what it's called in Lost Galaxy. I'm gonna call it that. So then we have, and apparently with these new powers, they create new Zords for the Rangers. Excuse me. Yep. And then we have the two new characters look like they're about to make out. It's like, yeah, which original characters don't have a problem with that. And then that kind of wraps that main story. The backup story is Ninjor and Blue Centaurian working together. Now, in their counterparts, Ninjor was Ninja Man in Kaku Ranger. Blue Centaurian, I believe, was what was the name of? Because he had a different name in Car Ranger. Yes, I remember in Car Ranger he had a completely different name. Come on, get there, please. Thank you. There you are. Of course, I watched Car Ranger years ago. Yes, but I watched Car Ranger last year. That's what I remember about Ninja Man. Yeah, and the thing with Ninja Man is he actually can create the coins. Like, mostly, but he was a student of the actual mechs they had in the show. Yeah, in the case of Blue Centaurian, he had a very similar role he did in Car Ranger. Oh, it's Single Man. That's the guy's name, Single Man. Essentially put, it's the same character with some minor tweaks. For one thing, he made his debut in that one, episode 12. In Turbo, made his debut in episode 13. And also, there's a little bit of mention, not mention of his family per se. And this is a cool team adventure by Ryan Furr. Just them team with each other from two seasons. Like, now, Ninja made his debut in My Power Rangers Season 3, where he was an entire season until he got written out of the show. And of course, they want to team again, which who knows if they will or not, but yeah, this book was really good. I give the book roughly a 9 out of 10. I give Punisher Max to be collection a 8.5 because it's the end of Garth and Ennis' era. But in the case of My Power Rangers, yeah, pretty much everything that came out for its first relaunch at the 55 issues where the names were separated, two separate titles. This part's done. So, all that's left to go is to go through the rest of Mighty Morphin and Power Rangers and they come back to the book to finish up. Of course, there's also Saban's Go-Go Power Rangers to go through. It is interesting, though, the fact they actually focused on this book is called My Power Rangers. It doesn't focus on them at all. They're not in these issues at all. It's basically all about explaining aspects of the Power Rangers timeline, which I thought was really cool. Excuse me. I think this is the end of Margaret Bennett's time with the book. I want to be sure about that. Go. I met her once in person. I think this is the end. Yes, this is the end of her time on the book. So, final thoughts on Margaret Bennett's very brief run in My Power Rangers. I thought it was pretty good. A lot of fun. I like the fact she adapted something that's from the show. And well, it is overall really good. Yep. So, there's not much else to discuss when it comes to this comic per se. No. Yeah. But in the case of the original Power Rangers Volume 1, yeah, this is done. So there's still got a little bit left to go for Saban's Go Power Rangers and the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers book and Power Rangers book. Yeah, still got those books left to go. And then eventually we have the return of the book with the air stuff there. But yeah, so that's pretty much a particular view. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications. Well, back to Jiraiya. Bye.